Story 1. The Couple in the Black Van. My name is Elena. I work the closing shift at a dive bar called the Rusty Anchor in the Florida Keys. It's one of those local spots right off the overseas highway. Dim lights, sticky floors, and a jukebox that hasn't been updated since 1998. It's usually a safe gig. The regulars are mostly fishermen and retired bikers who treat me like a little sister. But on Tuesday nights, the place is dead. It's just me wiping down the mahogany counter, listening to the hum of the ice machine. This started back in November. It was around 1 a.m. on a Tuesday when the bell above the door jingled. A man walked in. He didn't look like our usual clientele. He was maybe late 40s, handsome in a polished, surgical way. He wore a crisp linen shirt and expensive loafers. No socks. He looked like money. Not tourist money, but private island money. He sat at the far end of the bar. His posture was perfect. Too perfect. "Macallan 18, neat," he said. His voice was smooth, like velvet over gravel. I poured the drink. He smiled. A practiced, charming smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Quiet night for a beautiful girl to be working alone," he commented. I gave him my standard bartender reply. "Oh, my boss is in the back office cleaning his shotgun." It wasn't true, but it usually shuts down the creeps. He laughed softly. "Smart. You can never be too careful." He drank his whiskey slowly, asking me polite questions. Did I like the Keys? Did I want to travel? It felt like an interview. Then he dropped a $100 bill on the counter for a $20 drink. "Keep the change, Elena," he said. I froze. I hadn't told him my name. I wasn't wearing a name tag. Before I could ask, he stood up and walked out into the humid night. I watched him through the window. He didn't get into a car. He just walked into the darkness of the mangroves behind the parking lot. I didn't see him again for a week. I convinced myself he had just heard a regular say my name. Then came the following Tuesday. The door opened and he was back. But this time he wasn't alone. A woman was clinging to his arm. She was younger, maybe early 30s, dressed in a shimmering cocktail dress that was way too fancy for a dive bar. She was stunning, but her eyes were frantic. They darted around the room like a trapped bird. They sat down. The woman leaned over the bar immediately. "Oh my God, you're gorgeous," he gushed. She reached out and touched my hand. Her skin was clammy. "Look at her skin, Marcus. Isn't she perfect?" Marcus, the man, just nodded, watching me with that same predatory calmness. "Thank you," I said, pulling my hand back. "What can I get you?" "Champagne!" she squealed. "We're celebrating!" "We don't serve champagne." I gave them Prosecco in plastic cups. As they drank, the woman started her pitch. "We host exclusive parties," she whispered, leaning in close. "Very private, high-end clientele. We need girls like you, just to serve drinks, mingle." "You'd make $5,000 for a single night." $5,000. That was 3 months of rent. But every alarm bell in my head was ringing. The woman's smile was too wide, too rigid. It looked like she was terrified of dropping the act. "I'm good," I said flatly. "I have 2 jobs already." "But this is special," she insisted, her voice dropping an octave. Her grip on her glass tightened until her knuckles turned white. "You really should consider it. The venue is secluded, very safe." I said no. The man, Marcus, finally spoke. She said no, Clara. Let's go. He stood up abruptly. The woman's face fell. For a split second, she looked at me with genuine terror. Then she plastered the smile back on and followed him out. I told my boss, Old Man Rick, about them the next day. He grunted and told me to keep the back door locked. 2 nights later, I was driving home. The Overseas Highway is a lonely stretch of road at 3 a.m., just ocean on both sides and a strip of asphalt. I noticed headlights in my rearview mirror. A black cargo van. No markings. I sped up. It sped up. I slowed down. It slowed down. I turned off onto the gravel road leading to my trailer park. The van followed. My heart was in my throat. I pulled out my phone to call 911, but I was in a dead zone. No signal. I laid on my horn, hoping to wake up my neighbors. The van stopped at the entrance of the park, idled for a moment, then turned around and sped off. I didn't sleep that night. I bought a can of bear mace the next morning. The climax happened last Tuesday. It was stormy. Rain was hammering against the tin roof of the bar. No customers. I was counting the till, ready to close early. The back door, the heavy steel one that leads to the alley, rattled. Thump. Thump. I froze. That door is always locked from the inside. Then came a sound that made my blood run cold. A key sliding into the lock. The tumblers clicked. The handle turned. I didn't wait to see who it was. I grabbed the bear mace and ducked behind the bar. The door swung open. The wind howled into the room. "Elena?" a woman's voice called out. It was Clara. "Are you still here?" "We just want to talk." I peeked over the rim of the bar. Clara was standing in the doorway, soaked to the bone. But she wasn't alone. Behind her, 2 men in ski masks were crouching in the rain, holding zip ties. And behind them, waiting in the alley, was the black cargo van. The side door was open. The interior was lined with plastic sheeting. "Elena, come out," Clara said, her voice shaking. "Please, don't make them come find you." She wasn't recruiting me. She was bait. I hit the silent panic button under the register. Then I grabbed a bottle of Jack Daniels by the neck. "I have a gun!" I screamed. A lie. "I'm calling the cops!" One of the masked men stepped forward, pushing Clara aside. He was huge. "Grab her," he growled. He lunged over the bar. I sprayed the bear mace directly into his eyes. He screamed, clawing at his face, and fell backward, knocking over a stool. "Go, go, go!" the other man yelled. They grabbed their blinded friend and dragged him out the back door. Clara looked at me one last time, tears streaming down her face mixed with the rain, and ran after them. The van tires screeched, and they were gone. The police arrived 10 minutes later. They found the lock on the back door hadn't been picked. It had been opened with a key, a master key. It turned out the previous owner of the bar had lost a set of keys years ago. The police never found the van, or Marcus. But they did find a shallow grave in the mangroves a week later, about 10 miles north. It was the body of a young woman. She matched the description of a girl who went missing from a bar in Miami the month before. I don't work nights anymore, and I moved out of the trailer park. But sometimes, when I'm driving down the highway and I see a black van, I can't help but look at the driver. And I wonder if Clara is still in the passenger seat, smiling that terrified smile, looking for the next girl. Story 2. The Dead Zone on I-80. I used to work the graveyard shift at a truck stop off Interstate 80 in Wyoming. If you know anything about I-80, especially the stretch between Laramie and Rawlins, you know it's referred to as the Dead Zone. It's miles of nothing but sagebrush, wind, and blinding snow. It was a Tuesday in late January, about 3 a.m. The temperature was hovering around 5 degrees below zero. We hadn't seen a customer in 2 hours. Even the long-haul truckers were all asleep in their cabs out in the back lot. My job was mostly just babysitting the coffee pots and mopping the floors. To kill time, I usually stood by the front glass doors, watching the snow drift under the floodlights. I stepped outside for a smoke break. The cold was brutal. It stung my lungs instantly. I stood there for maybe 5 minutes, shivering, scanning the lot. It was empty. The diesel pumps were silent. The only cars were the semis parked way in the back. The front apron, where the regular gas pumps are, was completely desolate. I tossed my cigarette and went back inside, locking the glass door behind me. We keep it locked from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m., using a pass-through window for transactions. I walked behind the counter to grab my phone. When I looked up, my heart skipped a beat. Standing directly on the other side of the glass, right where I had been standing 10 seconds ago, was a man. He hadn't walked up. He hadn't driven up. He just appeared. He was wearing a dirty Carhartt jacket with the hood pulled up, and his hands were jammed deep into his pockets. He was staring at me. He wasn't shivering, despite the sub-zero wind. I walked over to the pass-through window and slid it open a crack. "Can I help you, man?" He didn't make eye contact. He kept looking past me, scanning the interior of the store. "My truck died," he mumbled. His voice was flat, devoid of emotion. "Battery's dead. I'm just past the entrance ramp. I need a jump." My internal alarm bell started ringing. I had just been outside. I had looked at the entrance ramp. There was no truck there. "I can't leave the store," I said. "But I can call AAA or the highway patrol for you." "No cops," he said quickly. Too quickly. Then he forced a smile. It was a tight, grimacing thing. "I just need a jump pack. Or some cables. You got a car, right? Just drive out there real quick." "Take 2 minutes." He shifted his weight, taking a step closer to the window. "Please, my girlfriend is freezing in the cab." That paused me. The thought of someone freezing out there was serious. "Where is the truck, exactly?" I asked. He pointed a gloved finger toward the far edge of the property, just beyond where the floodlights reached. "Right there, behind the sign." I frowned. I glanced up at the bank of security monitors hanging above the register. We have high-definition cameras that cover the entire perimeter. I looked at camera 4, which covers the entrance. Sure enough, there was a beat-up, dark sedan parked behind the large "Truck Stop" sign. My stomach dropped. I knew that car wasn't there when I was smoking. They must have rolled it in with the lights off, in neutral, to avoid being seen. "All right," I lied. "Let me go grab my keys from the back office." "Hurry," he said. I turned away from the window and walked into the office, but I kept my eyes glued to the monitor. I zoomed in on camera 4. The sedan was there, yes, but then I saw movement. Crouched by the rear bumper of the car was a second figure. He was holding something long and metallic, a tire iron or a pipe. And then I saw the third person. The front passenger door of the sedan was hanging open slightly. A pair of boots was sticking out, resting on the asphalt. Someone was lying across the front seat, waiting. It was a coordinated ambush. The guy at the window was the bait. He wanted to lure me out to his stranded car, where his buddies were waiting to jump me. Or worse. I slammed my hand on the silent panic button mounted under the desk. It alerts the local sheriff's department immediately. Then I grabbed the store phone and walked back out to the front counter. I held the receiver up so the guy could see it. "I called the cops," I shouted through the glass. "They're on their way." I expected him to get angry. I expected him to bang on the glass or run. Instead, his whole demeanor changed. The distressed traveler act vanished instantly. He straightened up, pulled his hands out of his pockets, and let out a laugh. A dry, chilling chuckle. He looked me right in the eye, smiled a genuine, amused smile, and tapped the glass with his knuckle. Tap, tap. "Next time," he mouthed. Then he turned and sprinted into the dark. I watched on the monitor as he reached the car. The guy with the tire iron jumped in the back, the bait jumped in the driver's seat, and they peeled out onto the highway with their lights still off. The state troopers arrived 15 minutes later. They found footprints all around the back of the building. Turns out, while the guy was distracting me at the window, the guy with the tire iron had been trying to pry open the back utility door. They ran the description of the car. It had been stolen in Nebraska 2 days prior. The owner, an elderly man, was found beaten unconscious in his driveway. The police told me that if I had walked out that door with jumper cables, I probably would have ended up in a ditch on I-80. I quit that job the next week. I work at a warehouse now, day shift only. And I never, ever stop for stranded motorists. Story 3. The Woman in Aisle 4. I work the graveyard shift at a massive 24-hour grocery supercenter just outside of Houston. It's a mindless job, restocking shelves, fronting merchandise, and listening to podcasts while the industrial floor buffer hums in the distance. At 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, the store is a ghost town. You get the occasional insomniac buying milk, or a group of stoned college kids buying snacks. But mostly, it's just me and the endless rows of fluorescent lights. I was stocking the cereal aisle, aisle 4, which is right near the back of the store. It's a quiet spot, far from the registers. That's when I noticed the guy. He was standing at the end of the aisle, near the end cap display of Pop-Tarts. He was wearing a faded gray hoodie with the hood up and baggy jeans. He wasn't looking at the food. He was looking directly at me. At first, I ignored him. As a woman working nights, you get used to creepy guys staring. I moved to the next bay of shelves, turning my back to him. A minute later, I heard footsteps. Soft, shuffling steps. I glanced over my shoulder. He had moved into the aisle. He was pretending to look at a box of oatmeal, but his body was angled toward me. Every time I shifted down the aisle, he mirrored my movement, keeping a consistent 10-foot distance. My stomach tightened. I checked for my radio, but I had left it on my cart at the other end of the aisle, right where he was standing. I decided to head toward the front of the store, toward the security guard who sits by the entrance. I started to walk briskly past him, keeping my head down. Suddenly, a hand clamped onto my bicep. I gasped, ready to scream, but a loud, cheerful female voice cut me off. "Jessica! Oh my God, girl! I haven't seen you since high school!" I froze. A woman was standing right next to me, gripping my arm tightly. She looked incredibly trustworthy. She was wearing light blue medical scrubs, like a nurse just getting off a shift, with her hair in a messy bun. She had a warm, open face. I stared at her, confused. I'm not Jessica. She leaned in close, her smile never wavering, and whispered directly into my ear. Her voice dropped to a chilling, serious tone. Play along. That guy in the gray hoodie has a knife. He's been following you for 10 minutes. I'm getting you out of here. My blood ran cold. The relief was instantaneous. A nurse, a witness, a savior. Oh, I stammered, forcing a smile. Hey! It's been so long. Let's go to my car, she said loudly, linking her arm through mine. I'm parked right out back. We can catch up. She started steering me away from the man, but then I realized something. She wasn't walking toward the front entrance, where the registers and security guard were. She was walking toward the back of the store, toward the fire exit near the loading docks. Wait, I whispered. The security guard is up front. We should go there. No, she hissed, smiling brightly for any onlookers. He's blocking the main aisle. He's watching the front. My car is right outside the fire door. It's faster. Just trust me. Her grip on my arm tightened. It wasn't a friendly hold anymore. It was a vice. Her fingernails were digging into my skin. I looked back. The man in the gray hoodie hadn't moved. He was just watching us go, almost like he was waiting. We passed the dairy section. The employees-only swing doors to the warehouse were just ahead. The store was dead silent. You're hurting my arm, I said, trying to pull away. Almost there, sweetie, she said. Her voice had lost all its warmth. It was hard, impatient. We reached the back corner. The fire exit has a push bar. If you open it, an alarm sounds. If we open that, the alarm goes off, I said, planting my feet. I don't care, she snapped. She let go of my arm with one hand to shove the door bar, but she kept a death grip on my wrist with the other. As she reached for the bar, I saw it. Tucked into the waistband of her scrubs, partially hidden by her shirt, was a roll of duct tape. Nurses don't carry duct tape in their waistbands. Adrenaline exploded in my chest. This wasn't a rescue. This was a handoff. No! I screamed. I didn't pull away. I dropped my entire body weight to the floor, deadweighting myself. It caught her off guard. She stumbled, her grip slipping on my sweaty wrist. I scrambled backward on the polished concrete, kicking out at her shins. Help! Fire! Fire! I screamed at the top of my lungs. The woman's face twisted into a snarl. For a second, she looked like she was going to lunge at me. But then she heard the sound of the floor buffer machine turning the corner nearby. She panicked. She shoved the fire door open, setting off the screeching alarm, and bolted into the night. I scrambled up and ran toward the front of the store, colliding with the night manager who was running toward the alarm. We watched the security footage with the police an hour later. It made me physically sick. The camera showed the man and the nurse entering the store together at 2:45 a.m. They walked around for a bit, then split up. The man went to aisle 4 to spot me. The woman waited in the next aisle over, watching through the gaps in the shelves. When the man cornered me, he wasn't trying to abduct me. He was the sheepdog. He was herding me toward her. The plan was for him to scare me so that I would trust her implicitly. She was the good cop. She used my fear to walk me voluntarily out the back door where their vehicle was waiting. They never caught them. The car was a stolen sedan with switched plates. I don't work at the grocery store anymore. And now, whenever a stranger is a little too friendly or a little too eager to help me, I don't feel relief. I feel terror. I check their waistband, and I run.